Well, welcome back. Another episode of The Awakened Stranger. And this is Cody, and today we're sitting with Sharla. And then, Sharla, I'll have you give us a quick introduction of yourself and maybe just kind of give us an idea of what you've been through in life and what's led us up to this point. And we've had a little bit of chatting conversation or texting back and forth that kind of led us to this podcast idea and to this episode. And so I have a little bit of background, but I'll let you kind of let all the callers or listeners know what's going on and where we got to this point. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll start from there.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Sharla. I am 53 years old, and I live in Texas, near the coast, near the Gulf Coast. I have 4 children and a granddaughter. I've had, everybody has stuff that happens in their life. My parents divorced when I was really young, so I didn't really have my dad in my life. Raised by a single mom who wasn't very present, so I have that kind of stuff in my background, and married really young. My husband he was 18, I was 19 when we met. We dated for a couple of years, and we were 20 and 21 when we got married, I think. And I was told I couldn't have kids, so we were just young and, blowing money and not worrying about the future and just living life. And I think I was 27 or 28 and turned up pregnant. And it was like, oh, wow, okay, guess what? You can have kids. So that started our family life. We had, a couple miscarriages in between, but it ended up we had a daughter. And then 4 years later, we had twin daughters. And then 4 years later, we had our son. And we were pretty good friends. I think that was the best part of our marriage, was that we were really good friends. And so through the ebbs and flows of being married and our relationship together, we always ended up being friends. So, 13 years ago, almost, in November of 2013, forgive me if I get emotional because
You're okay. This is a safe space.
He was on his way home from work, and he was in a car accident, and we had just met up. Actually, he worked in Houston, and we lived south of Houston, about 45 minutes south of Houston. And I was flipping furniture at the time. If anybody knows I would buy furniture and paint it and resell it. And I had gone that day and I had his truck, and he had the little car. He had a little Mini Cooper he used for driving back and forth to work because it got better. And so I had his truck, and it was full of furniture, and he had his car. And he had called me and said, hey, can you meet me before we head home? And I said, yeah, sure, which was extremely unusual. This never happened. Is always just, see you at home. Well, we ended up meeting up at a McDonald's, and he asked me to come inside to let me know that a friend of ours had lost their dad that same day. And he's like, I didn't want to tell you on the phone, And I was like, oh, man, that's really sad. I'm sorry to hear that. And I'll have to call the family and such. And we talked about plans for the weekend. He ran an auto repair shop, but he did construction work on the weekends for extra money and just because he liked doing it. We talked about him coming back to town to get a load of lumber and stuff like that. And I said, you know what, why don't, let's just wait until in the morning and I'll come with you. And he's like, no, we'll come back. And I was like, okay. So we left, and he started to walk away, and I said, "Wait." "Don't leave without kissing me goodbye." And he turned around and he just gave me a little peck on the lips and said, "See you at home." And we got in our separate cars and headed towards home. And it was less than 10 minutes down the road, I came up on an accident and recognized the car was flipped upside down. And I immediately just threw the truck and parked and hopped out and ran over because I knew it was him. And he was lying on the road, still alive, but not very responsive. And I just sat on the side of the road holding his hand and talking to him and begging him not to leave me. Of course, we're waiting on ambulances and all the things. Traffic had completely shut off the freeway. And the paramedics arrived and they came to him. And one of the paramedics started working on him. And another paramedic walked up and said, "Leave him. There's nothing we could do for him."
Oh, my gosh.
And I started screaming and begging, "Please, please do something. Please do something. This can't be the end." And there was a really sweet woman that had gotten out of her car and was there with me the whole time. And there was another man that was there praying with us. And eventually they came and took me away and told me that I had to leave him. And I started making phone calls. My sister came to pick me up because I couldn't drive. Obviously, the paramedics kept saying, "We can't let you leave. Your blood pressure is too high." And I said, "My husband's dead on the side of the road. I can assure you my blood pressure is not going to come down. You have to let me go home." And I had to go home and tell our 4 children that their dad was never coming home again. And just the screams and crying that came from them is something I'll never forget. And I can still feel and see all of that like it just happened.
Sorry, you've. I'm in the same emotions. I feel like I'm a little bit lost for words at the moment, but I continue, please.
Yeah, so that was obviously one of the worst days of my entire life. We you do all the things, the funeral and all of that, and just tried to continue living when you don't want to. For several months, I would just stay in bed all day. I would set my alarm to get up and get my kids on the bus to go to school and cry the whole time because I didn't want them to leave me. And then I'd go back to bed and stay in bed and set my alarm to get them off the bus and then try to be, as normal as we could be. And my sister, just a few months later, lost her husband suddenly to a massive heart attack. And I had to revisit all of that again with her. And I was just asking God, why? Like, why does this happen? You know, why did this happen to me? Why is this happening to her? I would never wish this kind of grief on anyone. And I decided at that point that I was still alive and I needed to keep living for myself and for my kids. And I started dating again, and I met someone, and we started dating and got married very soon after. He was in the military and he was being deployed, and told me that he would make sure that we were taken care of. If something happened to him, we would, you know, have all of his benefits and things like that. And not just, you know, I did that because I'd never been alone. My husband and I were married almost 19 years. We've been together almost 22 years. And I didn't know what my life was like without someone at my side. And this person came in and said all the right things and did all the right things. And he was so good to my kids. And I thought they needed that because I had never had that. I didn't have my dad in my life. And I thought, well, I don't want my kids to grow up without a dad. And then he deployed, and I found out horrible things about him. He'd been lying to me and cheating on me and all these things, even while he was deployed. So he came back, and we divorced shortly after that. So for the better part of the 9 years since that relationship ended, I've just been in survival mode, just doing what I had to do to take care of my kids, making sure that they had a roof over their heads. And I took a job. So we had survivor's benefits to take care of the kids after my husband passed away. He had a really good job and had worked really hard. And so that was what sustained us, so that I could stay home and continue to take care of them the way that I always had. And then as they aged out, the benefits got less. And so 2 years ago, I took a job that I absolutely hated, but it was decent money and good insurance. And in that time, my dad got sick. And I had just started building a relationship with him, the one that I never had as a kid. And my granddaughter was 2, and he'd never met my granddaughter before. And finally got to have that meeting. And shortly after that was when he got sick and deteriorated pretty rapidly. And I spent the next, maybe 3 or 4 months, every waking moment, every opportunity I had, driving the 2.5 hours to the hospital that he was in to visit him for 30 minutes or an hour, to have to turn around and drive back home and take care of the kids and be here for my job. And he died in October of 24. And I just kept moving forward. And eventually I hit a wall at work, and I had a mental breakdown at work. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't just keep holding everyone else together when I'm falling apart inside. And I tried so many different medications. I've tried talk therapy. I tried TMS therapy, which is like brainwave active, like something is supposed to like wake up the pleasure sensors in your brain, and nothing was working. And I was absolutely miserable. I cried all day. My kids never saw me happy. And I didn't want to live like that. I didn't want to be the person that I was after their dad died, where I could barely get myself out of bed. And I realized that it was just what you do when you have to keep going after something that horrible happens. Was I just kept putting it back inside. You don't have time to deal with this today. Somebody needs a ride to work. Somebody has a school project due. Somebody needs you to fix something or cook dinner, or I'll deal with it later. And all of that pain and grief was just packed down inside my body. And that day at work, I guess it had just hit its max. And I went to the doctor and I said, I don't know what else I can do. I told my kids, I said, I think I need to be hospitalized. I don't know what else to do. None of the medication is working. None of the therapy is working. And so a friend of mine facilitates mushroom retreats. And I reached out to her and I was like, hey, what's this all about? And so we talked a couple of times, and I was supposed to go in January, and things just didn't work out. And so I ended up going in April, and it was one of the craziest, wildest, terrifying experiences of my life. I saw things, felt things that I can't even describe. I can't put it into words. Noises came out of my body that I didn't know I was even capable of making. Just primal screams and crying, and someone having to remind me to breathe. And I am still trying to work through a lot of what happened. I went through two journeys. The first one was the intense one. The second one, when I took the medicine, I didn't really have much of an experience, but the facilitator said it probably was because I'd had such an intense reaction the first day that my body just couldn't handle it the second day. And the part that scared me the most was that I felt like in that place I was being taken away from my kids. And so all I wanted to do was get home to them. So I left the retreat early to come home and be with my kids. And I've just been trying to figure out what all of this means. So I got on TikTok, and I found Cody. And I think it was maybe within the first few days that you had started your journey on TikTok with making your videos. And you said, hey, if you want to message me, I'll message you back. And I thought, well, that, he's probably getting thousands of messages a day. And I get, I've gotten random messages, but they're usually not even real people, right? They're like scammers. And so I was like, whatever, I'm just going to reach out. And I just felt like I was meant to see your video that day because of everything that I had just gone through. And you did. You messaged me back, and we had a little conversation where I found out that you had also done mushrooms, which is where things kind of started for you. And I thought, okay, well, I felt less crazy, like knowing that someone else had kind of went on this crazy journey, and yeah, I just felt like for whatever reason I was meant to come across your video, and that's how we got to where we are today. I will say that even though I did not enjoy the experience of the mushroom, I definitely feel like it's not for the faint of heart. You have to really be in a place where you're ready. I thought I was ready, but I guess I had expectations of what might happen. I thought, all this grief's going to be released, and I'm not going to miss him every moment of every day, and life's going to be all sunshine and rainbows, and I'll feel like a human again. And that's not what happened. Which, of course, is not really what's supposed to happen, but I guess I was just hopeful that after everything that I'd gone through, that maybe this was finally a solution. I will say, though, that one of the things that after the fact, and I talked to my friend, she was the facilitator, and I told her the things that I saw and felt, and she was like, well, that's exactly what you needed to see. Your whole life has been focusing on your kids, and the reason you felt like you were losing them or being taken away from them was what you needed to see, because you need to learn to let go, and not in like a physical sense of, I'm done with my kids and not be a part of their life anymore, but that I've had such a tight grip on them for so long that I'm hindering their abilities to go out and live the life that they're meant to live, and that I'm hindering my abilities to go out and live the life that I'm meant to live. So I've been trying to focus on loosening my grip on them. And it actually has been a very good thing. I'm saying no more often.
That's good.
And that's hard. I mean, that's really hard, when your whole focus has been asking other people, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And not really even knowing what I need or what I want. So yeah, I mean, that's where we are today. I mean, I've always I've always been a helper. I think that's been, with my experience from childhood. I know that the thing that happened with my husband was the worst possible thing that could ever have happened, except for losing a child. And I don't want to compare my grief to that or to anyone else's. And I don't think anyone should ever compare grief. But I always felt like I wanted to make an impact in people's lives. And the job I took, I was a housekeeper. I was a custodian at a church. And I was like, what is, how am I making a difference in people's lives by cleaning toilets and dumping trash, And I just hope that through this experience and maybe talking with you that I can find a pathway to help people that have been in a bad place in their life get out of that darkness. I know that a lot of the trauma I felt with losing my husband was also part of the trauma from my childhood. I didn't have a stable masculine figure in my life, and then I had my husband and I lost that, and then trying to rebuild a relationship with my dad, and I lost that.
Sounds like a lot of loss, a lot of grief. You've held on to a lot of things for a long time.
Yeah, and I just want, I feel like sometimes people feel like they can't talk about the person that they lost. And that's one thing we do in our house is I talk about their dad almost every day. Just to remind them, my son was only 5 years old when his dad passed away. And so he didn't really know him the way the older kids did. And so I just remind them to keep him alive for them, so that it's not someone that he was, it's someone that he is. And I think it's important for people to be able to talk about their loved ones. I've had all the, well, it's been over 12 years, you're not over it yet. No, I will never be over it. That man made me a mother. He will always be the father to my children. His death didn't take that away. He will always be their father. That his death didn't take that away. And when people say, oh, move on, get over it, you never get over it. You just learn a different way of living. And it's hard. It's not easy. But I think people need help getting through it. And I think there's still so much progress that needs to be made for mental health.
I agree. I think a lot of people have learned or not learned how to speak, how to share emotions. I kind of want to go back just a little bit to your mushroom experience, because I believe that's what started my awakening. I had a very large dose of psilocybin by myself downstairs in my spare bedroom. I did it in complete darkness with a blindfold, and I had no idea what I was about to endure. And I've learned a lot, and I, as you say, as you're integrating kind of what happened, it'll come. It's going to come in about 6-7 months, and it's going to be in pieces, and you'll slowly start remembering the experience. And a lot of it, I believe, is the veil of forgetfulness, right? That's what we're coming through right now, I believe, an awakening through remembering. And I believe your journey that you went through will slowly be revealed to you. I also believe that with mushrooms, I think it's 10,000 hours of therapy in one night, and and you faced it head on. That's one thing I've learned very, very intimately is a mushroom experience. You sit face to face with the darkest, lowest energy that you can find in your body, and you don't get to turn away from it. You don't get to run, and you sit face to face with it. And you did that. You faced your trauma, and you sat in front of it, and you screamed and yelled, and like you said, the sounds coming out of your body were unearthly, and that happens, and it's scary as hell, and there is no way to prepare for something like that. I experienced similar things like that, and I chase those feelings. I've probably been on about 20-25 journeys myself, and it got to the point where I had a big ego death. And that was one thing that you had shared with me, is that you felt like you were on the edge of an ego death but didn't allow yourself to get there. And it is the scariest thing in the world when you're in the space where you think everything's falling apart. You'd mentioned, the feeling of losing and letting go of your kids, and not being able to come back from that. And I imagine that was terrifying. It definitely gets easier as you start remembering kind of what happened in your journey. And I do believe that there's a reason that you're here. I believe there's a reason that you were gone through some of the traumas in your life, and it's made you who you are today. And if it's as simple as sharing your story here for other people to experience it, hear it, feel those emotions, and be a part of your life, that could be something that's probably more impactful than you'll ever know. But it's not easy. It's definitely a struggle, and I would say continue to kind of deep dive into remembering what happened, because it'll come in pieces. But it's also, like you mentioned, I think that's probably the most beautiful tribute to your husband. He's not gone. It's just different right now. And his memories are here. His children are here. His wife is here. And they get to live on through what he created. And I believe it's a huge tribute to who he was as a man, and who he was as a husband and a father for you. And that alone is well worth just this phone call. So I find myself being very empathic as well, and I don't absorb people's energy anymore. I've kind of learned how to protect my space that way, but I definitely sense the feelings, and I go through those emotions, and my heart breaks for you, and I know that it's not easy. But it does get easier, and talking about it, letting it out, has probably been for me the best way of my own therapy, if you will. So I don't know if this is a solution. I don't know if this is what's going to make things easier for you, but I definitely know it might be helpful. Coming out of your experience, right? We're a few months since you've had that experience. Have you had any kind of reminiscing or flashbacks of that night, or any new kind of awarenesses of what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I remember a lot of it. I think the scariest part for me was, like you were saying, you're facing it head on, and you can't unface it. I mean, you're in it, and you just have to go through it. It's like you have to go through it. You can't just snap your fingers and you're like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to feel this anymore.
Mm-hmm. You can't change the channel.
There were moments as far as like, I can't. And, my friend, she's rubbing me on the back, and her husband was there. God bless him. He was definitely, I kept asking her, because I was like, again, my wounds are masked, not having the masculine, and the loss of that is a really big part of my grief. And I know, like I've even talked to a therapist and also my friend that, and I said, as much as I miss my husband, I think a big part of my grief is just the loss of masculinity in my life, because I'm supposed to be a woman. That's the whole, I know that's all like controversial right now, masculine, feminine, but I'm like, I'm a woman. I'm supposed to be feminine. I'm supposed to allow someone to take care of me. And I have had to be the caretaker for so long. And my friend's husband was there, and I would just like, he came and sat with me and her, and she's like, reminding me, breathe. And I'm like, rubbing on his leg and feeling the hair on his leg, just because I was like, God, that's a man's leg right there, And I just kept asking her, is it okay? Is your husband, is it okay? And she's like, yes, he's here for you too, But yeah, I remember what I remember about it is that my life was on a loop, and that same loop just kept replaying, but the loop was getting smaller or faster and faster, or shorter and shorter, I guess. And every time it played through that loop that's the part that was so frightening for me, because it felt like I was shrinking and I was going to nothing. And this is the part where my friend says that I probably was on the verge of that ego death. And she said, if I had let myself go through it, that I probably would have had a better release on the other side. Mm-hmm. But the fear was so strong that I was so afraid that I wouldn't come back to my kids that I just couldn't let go. But there was a presence. I can't even say it was a voice, or it's so hard to explain. It was just like a knowing. I just kept hearing, you're almost there. You're almost there. Just let go. And I was so afraid that was the voice telling me to let go of my body. And I just kept saying, I'm not done being human. I'm not done being human. Because I was so afraid that I would be taken away in spirit and not come back to my body. And that's why I couldn't let go. And
so I've come to learn, because the first ego death that I experienced was on a large dose, and the ability to surrender and to let go. The night that happened to me, I was so I have a basement bedroom that is kind of my journey room, and I have my bedroom that's upstairs that my wife and I share. And she was in bed, I was in our bedroom upstairs, and that moment came on for me. And I remember looking at her. She was sober. I was going through the feelings of that. I'm about to die. I looked at her and I said, I something's wrong. I don't know what's happening, but I think that I've poisoned myself, and I think that I'm going to die. And I started hyperventilating. I started freaking out, and she reminded me. She said, you remember, you've just taken mushrooms. You're experiencing this, and it's okay. I started crying. I told her, I said, please tell the girls I love them. I love you. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. And I knew that I was dying. I knew that it was over. And I couldn't stop it. I had taken a large enough dose that there wasn't the ability to fight it. And I knew that I had killed myself, essentially. And my ego was finally surrendering to the ability to know that it was done. I think probably 7 or 8 times I apologized for everything I'd ever done wrong. I asked for forgiveness 100 times. And I kept telling her, please let the girls know I love them. Please let them know I love them. And I said, it's time. I'm gonna close my eyes. And I laid there, and about 15 seconds later, I was laughing and I was sitting up, and she's like, what the hell is wrong with you? She's like, you literally had me about ready to call 911. She's like, you had me so convinced you were dying that she was holding her phone ready to call 911. And I said, I fully believed it. I knew it was the end of me. And I can laugh about it now because I've now on purpose, I've chased that feeling several times. I've intentionally taken doses large enough to bring on another ego death. What's come for me, what I've realized for me, and I'll use the analogy of sledding down a hill with snow, right? If you have a sledding hill that you're going down the exact same spot over and over and over, you eventually carve out a nice spot. Imagine a tube going down a hill, you have a path. And an ego death essentially was a whole fresh new layer of snow where that path, that direction that we've always been going gets cleared and it gets refreshed. And there's now amazing new paths that you get to go down. And that's essentially kind of how I felt as I surrendered and I allowed that moment. It changed my entire perception on what was happening. And I not that I would wish that you would go through that experience again, but I wish you will go through that experience again, because the other side is pure bliss. It was a flash of instant knowing that we are energy, that we are not going away, that we are truly a creation from source, and that our energy has no beginning and has no end. And I fully understood quantum immortality. I understood everything that we exist through, and it was such a weird realization to know. And again, I was raised in a religion that, right, you die, you go to heaven, and depending on how you live, there's 3 levels of heaven. And if you're not a great person, you don't get to go to the top kingdom. And you might not see somebody in heaven if you weren't able to achieve the highest level, right? And I know that that's man-made. That is fear-based religion. And the truth is we are energy, and your husband's energy is still around you. And we're just in a different dimension right now. I fully believe that we are just not seeing within certain frequencies what's truly out there. And I know for a fact that I'm going to reference his light body, right? I believe that that's what we become after physical is a light body. And that's still here. It's still in your presence. And you have him around you all the time. He's there watching over you and your kids, just like he was when he was a physical man here, because we don't ever go away. And just from my experience, again, this is my perception, but I know when they say the difference between believing and knowing, I know that we don't go anywhere other than a different dimension. And our physical body is just a vessel that we get to learn and live through emotions. And that's what I believe that my life path here on is to learn how to deal with emotions, to feel emotions, right? As spirit, as a light body, you don't get to feel love. You don't get to feel joy. You don't get to feel grief. You don't get to feel loss. That's why we chose to obtain a body and to come to this planet to live in the most dense, hardest planet that it's really a school for the soul. We're learning how to handle things that you don't get the opportunity to in spirit. And it's a path that we chose on purpose. We wrote a soul contract to come to this planet for this lesson. And that's my belief. That's what I think we're here for is to feel these emotions, to learn from them. And as you mentioned, your life feeling like it was going in a spiral, that is essentially what I believe is we're doing. We're living our lessons, our karmic lessons in a spiral. And as we learn and gain new knowledge, we re-loop the same patterns from a different perspective. And as you mentioned, you felt like it was getting a tighter and tighter spiral and happening faster and faster. that is you learning how to handle trauma easier and easier, and you're gaining those building blocks to continue to develop the skills to let go of that generational, the loss, the feel of emotions and the grief. It's my belief is that we're here to either have experiences or learn lessons, right? There's no positive or negative. There's no punishment for making a bad choice. We are here to learn a lesson. When we learn that lesson, our life cycles back through it, giving us a different example that might show us a way that we've understood that lesson and we've approached it from a different perspective, from a higher consciousness. And when we've proven to our soul that that lesson has been learned, well, guess what? We get held and dealt with another lesson. And it's all on purpose. We chose this. So that's my belief, my understanding from some of the experiences I've had. And like I said, I feel like some of this understanding and knowing is going to come to you in the next few months, because it's way more than our human vessel can hold. Our soul already knows the outcome. We already know the end of the story. We're just now living through the moments that got us to that point, right? And when you mentioned leaving your body and feeling like you weren't going to be able to come back, I believe that there's what's called, and other people have referenced it, the silver cord. Your soul is attached to your body through the silver cord, and there's nothing that can separate that other than your body physically not being able to stay alive, right? Your husband had that silver cord released as his body was no longer capable of holding his soul. But it wasn't him dying, it was just the body. And he's here, his energy's here. I feel it just as well as you did on this phone call. There is absolutely a presence of him here with us, and I hope you feel that. I hope you know that he's watching over you, and he's here just as well as he was in physical, just in a different form right now. So I don't know if that helps bring any peace or understanding, but that's what I've learned through my journeys and some of the stuff that I've gone through myself. But it's a lot, and I know it is, and especially for your first time, you got handed a handful of chaos in that moment. And really, I like to talk in analogies because, whether you go through the Bible or other religious books, talk about Jesus, he spoke in parables, and it was because we understand things differently at different parts of our life. And one of my most favorite ones is, right, the parable of either the cow or the buffalo, right? When a storm comes, the cows, the bulls, they run. They turn away and run from the storm. And a buffalo heads straight into the storm because it knows that if it goes into the storm as the storm's moving, it enters and exits the storm faster. And so you chose to be the buffalo. You headed face on to your traumas and your grief. And it was the hardest thing that you'll probably ever do besides losing your husband. And I hope that in the future that this continues to unfold for you and that you get to see from a different perspective what happened that night for you. Because I know it was hard, but it was probably the most beautiful thing that your soul has ever signed up for. So keep going, keep going, because it's truly beautiful when you understand it from that part. But I know I've kind of taken over a lot of your time, but if there's anything else that has come up while we've chatted, let's keep going. I don't have a time restriction. I just like to keep talking until we've kind of ended the topic. But
yeah, I definitely felt what you were like when you were telling your wife. I remember telling my friend, I was like, I don't want my kids to be mad at me that I did this. Because I didn't have anyone with me. Like you had your wife with you. I was with, people that I didn't really know.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of the ladies through our journey. We were, in the same room, and she was just dancing and singing, and she had this scarf, and she was just having the most lovely time. I was like,
probably mad at her, huh? Not fair.
I know. I said, I want to have one like she had. And you got to keep going. You have to do, that was like her, she'd had like, I think that was like her 9th and 10th journeys or something like that. And they're like, you can't, you have to keep doing the work to get there. And I'm like, damn it.
Yeah. That's been one of the hardest realizations for me, because my first, I guess, awakening experience, right? It's about 2.5 years ago, and I spent probably 6 months. I would take a dose every 2 weeks downstairs in my basement on a Saturday night. I had Tuesdays or Thursdays and Sundays off. So Saturday night I would take my dose around 9:30. I would say goodnight to the family. I'd go downstairs, and from about 10 o'clock till 4 in the morning was on my journey alone downstairs, and I chased those feelings for probably 6 months. I definitely have a very addictive personality. I've never had drug or alcohol addictions or problems there. I found something that I thought was teaching me who I was and what my soul's purpose was, and I was able to heal things to the point where I chased it. I wanted it so bad. My wife had to kind of check me a little bit. And she's like, this is getting obsessive. She's like, you need to sleep in your own dang bed at night. Like, stop going downstairs. And it's, but you don't understand. Like, there is so much that I'm learning. And she's like, well, then explain it to me. I'm like, I can't. Like, you don't understand. I saw a reference of like, and I'm very visual, right? So imagine a post newel on the bottom of a very elaborate staircase that has a most elaborate horse carved into the wood, and then a picture of a kindergarten drawing that same picture. Like, I felt like my experience was that amazingly crafted wood sculpture of a horse, and the way I was able to explain it to my wife was like a kindergarten's drawing of a horse. And,
right.
and like, I can't explain it. I can't put it into words. Like, you just need to read my mind. I'm like, telepathy's real. Let me just like let you hear what my thoughts are saying, because there's so many things that become aware to you when you reach those higher realms and higher dimensions. And again, it's sometimes scary, but like the lady that's had her 9 journeys, it becomes beautiful, and it becomes something that you understand at a different level. And then this side of it that kind of sucks is you then realize that there is something greater out there, and there's a purpose for us, and we chose to come here for a reason. That there's probably been many lifetimes that you and your husband have been on this journey together, and sometimes that he was the wife and you were the husband. I believe that we've, I think for me, I'm waking up to my feminine energy. I'm crying more than I ever have in my life. I lived my life as the strong guy that never cried, and I freaking break down in tears almost daily. I feel like I'm awakening up my feminine energy, and you've been living in the masculine, taking care of your kids, and I believe there's a balance coming. We're going to be able to integrate both of those equally, and there's going to be an integration between our higher self and our soul, as well as our ego, and all of this is kind of coming to a central point on purpose, which is why so many of us have reached out and connected with each other, because there's a reason that we're doing this. There's a reason that we chose to be here in this lifetime. And it's truly beautiful when you really get to that point, I guess. And that's from my experience, right? I would never tell somebody how to think or believe. And that's the crazy thing, because I used to be the very opinionated person, and it's either my way or the highway kind of thing. And you either see my beliefs or see the door. And it's crazy how much that has changed for me. I feel like I'm truly a different person than I was even a year ago. So my challenge would be to keep going, because you're on the breaking point of something amazing if you allow yourself to keep going. So yeah.
It's definitely something that I feel like I need to. I don't know if I know I'm not ready to go on another big journey like that again. But I'm definitely working on the healing part, the integrating part. It was funny too, because the lady that was dancing, and when we talked about our journeys later, and she was like, oh yeah, I mean, I realized I am God. And so yeah, there's that. And then another lady was like, oh yeah, I had that journey a couple of journeys ago. And I'm just sitting there like, like, I feel like you were saying, like, I'm the little kindergartner. And God, they've already reached the level, because not that, they are God, but like, it's all one. Like, we're all one. Like, it's all connected. And they're like, oh yeah, well, we've reached that point already. And here you are over here groveling on the ground like some wild creature,
Have I shared the YouTube video with you, the Aaron Abke, the time that he met God on mushrooms? Have I shared that with you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one.
See,
that one, it was really good, and I felt a lot of that, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit, because it reminded me of some of the things that, like some of the things I saw and I felt. And I remember that the people there kept telling me, you asked us to do this. You asked for this. Mm-hmm. Why would I do this to myself? That's the part I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, I know I understand the concept of, the soul contract, and I chose this, and I've read other things. Like, I mean, there's a simple book called, it's like a children's book called, I think it's called The Little Soul and the Sun, or do you know what I'm talking about? And it talks about how, like, a soul chose to come here to do harm to someone, because that's what that person needed to learn. Mm-hmm. And it was like, the little soul was like, but they're going to hate me. And they're like, yes, but in the bigger picture, you're doing them a favor, because they've asked to learn this lesson. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've not heard that book, but that brought up just a quick thought for me, because I've had a lot of trauma that I've learned to come through and to grow from, and one of the big things for me was what I would reference as my father trauma, right? That my dad was the person in my life, and I've said I've become who I am to be exactly opposite of who my dad is, and I choose not to have a relationship with him. I've actually had to block him on all my social media profiles. He doesn't have my daughter's phone numbers. I won't allow that to happen. And I was very angry at him for a long time of just not being the father in my life, that I was jealous of friends that had a dad that showed up for him. And I held grudges against him for so long, and then all of a sudden it was like a flash. I call them my downloads. I had a download that said, your father's soul contract with you was to be this exact man, to give you the opportunity to become who you are. And it finally made sense that my awareness, my existence before this lifetime, I chose him to be this person for me in my life for a reason. And now I love him for that aspect. I still choose on the physical side to not have a relationship with him, but I actually now appreciate who he is, because it's made me and allowed me to become who I am, to learn how to talk to my daughters in a way that I wasn't able to do a long time ago. And yeah, I finally learned why people are in our lives, and that it was on purpose. And sometimes it hurts and it's hard to deal with, but when we look at it from a different perspective, and like you said, we talk about the difference in the masculine and feminine perspective, and I feel like as we start understanding why every single person in our life is the way they are, is not just because there's some jerk or somebody that's doing something that's causing us problems. It's because that was our soul contract with them to be that person for us in our life. So there's a lot deeper things to think about when you get into that side of it too. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's the human part of us, is to just write them off as a bad person or whatever. It's when you have to dig in deeper and be like, okay, I mean, I feel like I've been trying to do that with my mom because she's almost 80, and she's never been really supportive, and she was always very selfish, and so I feel like I tried to be the extreme opposite for my kids, and I think that's what part of my journey was telling me, like, you need to quit being so extreme on the other end. Like, you're preventing them from living a normal life because you're doing everything for them. And my son will be 18 this month, so they're all essentially adults, and I still do so much for them. And my mom did like nothing for me. But so now I'm trying to see her in a different light. Like, maybe part of that was for her to teach me to be a better mom than she could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was going to say, what I look at things now, and this is kind of the perspective that I'm seeing things, is if we were going to go and start a play, right? If we were going to be in a Shakespeare play, we would have actors that had a role and they knew their script and they would play that role. And that's all that people in our life are doing. They're playing a role in a script that we've already written prior to our lifetime. And when the play's over, we all get to take a bow and realize that we did it together. And that's kind of the perspective I've had from things, is we're all playing the script in a big play right now, and we've done it on purpose to give us this experience. So it's helped me to understand why people act the way they do, and now I love them for their actions versus getting upset or angry that somebody cut me off in traffic, or right, or somebody delayed me from getting somewhere fast, and right, it just, now I'm realizing that every single thing in our life is on purpose, and it becomes very beautiful when you see it from that perspective. So
it's crazy that you say that too, because in my journey, the people that were in the room with me, like when I told you, like my loop kept getting smaller and smaller, or faster and faster, and it was like the same thing was playing out over and over and over. And the characters, the people in the room with me, I would be like, oh, you knew I was going to do that, didn't you? And they would just like smile and wink at me, and like it was almost like it was like a play. Mm-hmm. And it was, you have bloopers on a TV show, and everybody plays the bloopers or whatever because somebody cracked a joke or started laughing or got their lines wrong. That's what was happening. These people would just reset, and they knew their part, and they would just reset and wait for me to get to the point, to the next part. You know what I mean? It was like, I was like, y'all are just like, I was in a TV show and y'all are characters in my TV show. And my friend was like, yeah, that is what's happening. These people have a play in your journey. And I just remember that, I was like, thank you for being here for me. Thank you for doing this for me.
Yeah. Well, and for me, when I come out of those experiences, there's just this overwhelming sensation of love. And it's like a full understanding what unconditional love actually means. And that's where I said, you can love people for being the jerk in your life. You can love people for being the person that cut you off. You can love people because you realize that they're doing it because you asked them to, from the, before we chose to come here. And yeah, it's I don't know. I love those, and Mike said, it's a reset for me. It's letting the snow fall and creating a new pathway down my life. And yeah, you start seeing it from an aspect of pure love. And I think that's what's shifting in the world right now. We're learning how to accept people for who they are and no longer needing all the fake stuff and the masks that we've been wearing for so long. So
yeah, I hope so. I hope so. You see it more and more. I agree. It feels like it's happening more.
Yeah.
And that's how we accept each other.
It is. And I can't thank you enough for having the guts and having the grit to just send a message. It's amazing.
Yeah. for answering. I just, and having me talk with you. Yeah, it has helped to have one that's been through it to talk, just in this hour that we've been together, just some of the things you said, I just like, oh, thank God someone else else had that experience, and I'm not losing my mind, and I'm not dying.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's crazy is I know there's people that have been on their journey way longer than me, and there's people that are just barely coming aware of the, I guess, the realization of what we're doing. And I've even shared with my wife several times, I'm like, I feel like I go through things before others just to have the understanding of what's coming. And I follow the Schumann resonance a lot, right? The vibration of the planet. And every day that solar flares go off and the CMEs leave the sun and it hits our planet, it changes the frequency. And our Earth vibrates at different frequencies on different days. And there's times where I feel it a day or two before other people sense it. Or, people will have a headache. And I'm like, yeah, I got that yesterday. And not that, again, nothing that I'm special at all. I just sometimes feel like I have become I don't know whether it's my soul contract that I live through it and experience just to be there to help validate that somebody else isn't crazy. Because I feel that myself a lot. I tell everybody all the time, I just feel like I'm crazy. Like I feel like I talk to myself in my head, but it's not me, it's a different version of me. And I've seen things in my mind that don't make sense. And a lot of these, I'm like, hey, was it just induced from a big mushroom dose? Or is this me becoming aware of something that I couldn't understand at a different point in my life? So, yeah, like I said, keep going. It's going to unfold for you. It's there. It's your journey. It's nobody else's. I would never be able to tell you what you're about to experience or what's coming, because it's your path. It's your time. And like I believe everything is in divine timing. It is on purpose, on time, exactly the way it's supposed to be happening for you, just as well as my life is happening for me. It's always the way it's supposed to be. So it hurts. We go through emotions, but I think that's the reason we're here, is to learn how to handle, hold, and feel emotions, to experience things that you can't do outside of the physical body. So it's all for a reason.
Yep.
But I'll ask you kind of a final question, if you're okay. But is there anything that has come to mind that you would like to share with the listeners on what you've learned through this experience, what you're gone through in your life, what you're looking forward to, kind of any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I think one of my biggest things that I'm learning is to not be so afraid of everything. If you feel called to do something, give it a try, give it a shot. I mean, just like I was like, when I messaged you, I was like, he's not going to answer me, but I was like, you know what? What's it going to hurt? If it got it off my chest to reach out to you, tell you what I was feeling. And I was afraid to take the journey with the mushrooms, and I took a chance on it. And as frightening and terrifying as parts of it were, I'm seeing great changes in my life. I do feel like I'm letting go of some of the grief. I've learned some more about where the grief was coming from. And I just hope that that maybe someone hearing this, that maybe I've given them some encouragement or some strength to try something new or make a change in their life. So that's all I've ever hoped for, was to make a difference to someone.
Well, I know for a fact that this call is going to make a difference. There's probably a lot of people that have been scared, haven't done something, or chose not to, or has limited themselves. And I know that your call is going to definitely help open those eyes for people. So you've definitely got a purpose here.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Cody, for reaching, just speaking your truth and, bringing us all together.
Yeah.
The ones that have been a part of it. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. And like I said, on the messages, I've told everybody I will respond to every personal message. that without a doubt, it might even take me a few days when they get overloaded, but I will respond to every personal message. I can't get every comment on the videos. I try to, but every personal message is me responding. It's authentic. It's I read the message. If it's a long message, I might take a minute to make sure I can get into the right headspace so I don't skim through the message. But I do feel like coming through my own awakening, there's a reason that I'm able to do this. There's a reason that people listened to my message. It still blows my mind. I posted that video of me quitting my job and stating that I was just going to start a business and I was scared. That was the context of my video. And 212 followers that day has now led to over 31,000. We've now launched a podcast. We now have a support group on Facebook. The Awakened Stranger is the podcast. It's the support group on Facebook. It is the purpose that I believe that we're all here together for. And somehow I've become the tool that is being allowed to be worked through. I know this is not me. This is definitely, and to every aspect, I know with full gratitude that I am just being allowed to be the voice of a higher power working through me. And I thank you so much for this opportunity to share your story with me and to hear about your life. And you've truly blessed me and made my day amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Cody. You've definitely blessed me as well. Thank you.
So awesome. I truly look forward to keeping in touch and building our friendship as we move forward. So we'll look forward to maybe a follow-up here in a few months to see what you've learned and integrated from your journey.
Yes, hopefully maybe I'll be the dancing time.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing that story.
All right. Thank you, Cody.
I hope you have an amazing night.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.